present this paper on behalf of myself and Dr. Simeon Aloziowa, who is not present due to certain constraints. I'll be talking on the topic of interfaith dialogue in Nigeria. I want to do this by presenting some incidents or events that took place in Nigeria in the most recent years. Some of those events have been articulated by Dr. George when he made his own presentation. So I begin by refreshing our minds on some of these incidents. We believe that in our present world, where the media has become more pervasive than ever imagined, all of us must have been probably aware of what happened recently in Nigeria in Ketu Ayetoro area of Ogun State, a neighboring state to Lagos, the Nigerian capital, when a religious leader or a pastor acted as biblical Gideon. This pastor by name, Wale Fabere, reportedly marched to a shrine belonging to some worshippers of African traditional religion. He tore down the shrine, their place of worship. According to the reports, shortly after tearing down the shrine, the pastor was trapped inside the shrine by forces suspected to be spirits of the ancestors. The man became unconscious, motionless, and could not talk. The report, as confirmed by the Nigerian police force, went further that Pastor Fabere remained in that state until the traditional or the chief priest of the shrine was called. He performed some incantation, and this pastor was released. Before then, a few months ago, in a rural community in Anambra State of Nigeria, some youths masquerading as defenders of African traditional religion attacked a rosary procession organized by the Catholic Church there. The Catholic priest who led the procession was severely beaten to a state of unconsciousness, and objects of their religious worship were damaged. The youths claimed that the rosary procession was proceeding in such a menacing manner that they felt threatened, that the rosary procession threatened their own African traditional religion. And the priest in question was notorious of burning shrines and other traditional artifacts. They had earlier alleged that the shrine was sacred symbols. The shrine which the Christians were burning were their own sacred symbols, just as the Christians had their own cross. A claim that the traditional ruler of that area found spurious. Our interest in these incidents does not derive from their sheer drama, that characterized them, but these incidents occurred in the so-called religiously defined society. It is, however, before proceeding further, it is, however, important for purpose of clarity to note certain salient points concerning these incidents I mentioned. First of all, for the incidents in Ogun State, it is worthy to note that prior or before the destruction of the shrine, Pastor Fabere had publicly blasphemed the gods of African traditional worshippers. He declared his intention to demolish the shrine. Secondly, the worshippers refrained from reacting in kind to the pastor's extremism. He was not attacked by the worshippers whose shrines were being threatened. Third, the cleric was not arrested by the police for utterances capable of causing public order and breaching the peace. Fourthly, when Pastor Fabere became struck down, presumably by the gods of the African traditional religion, rather than seize the opportunity of his helpless situation to beat him to death, the worshippers of these gods had presumably the worshippers whose God has presumably avenged the irritant pastor refrained from lynching him or touching him. Instead, they went further to show an uncommon magnanimity by reviving the extremist from his pitiable condition. And this incident also put myself and my colleague to further reflection. If it is a mosque or a church that was burnt in Nigeria, what would have been the reaction of the worshippers, the Christians? What would have been the reaction or the response of the worshippers towards the burning of the shrine or the mosque or a church? As Dr. George mentioned a few months ago, a woman was beheaded on this blasphemy law, and nothing tangibly was done to bring the perpetrators to book. Pastor Fabere was handed over to, the most interesting aspect of this story is that the Nigerian police force, which confirmed the incident, made no arrest and only waited for the worshippers to officially lodge a complaint before the cleric could be charged for sacrilege and malicious damage. And as for the incident in Anambra State, it is interesting to note that the perpetrators of the crime, Gabriel, Anthony, and Humphrey, the youth leaders who constituted themselves into the defenders of African traditional religion, were at least nominal Christians. Neither were it that not only did that traditional ruler of the community, whose deity shrine was supposedly threatened, he did not see that as a threat. He exonerated the Christians from the allegation. Indeed, the actions of the youth were condemnable, but nobody raised an eyebrow against the African traditional religion the crime being perpetrated against the African traditional religion. The focus of this paper is to underscore that inter-religious dialogue or interfaith dialogue within the Nigerian perspective has been conceived and understood as Christian-Muslim project. It has been exclusively conceived as a kind of Christian-Muslim project. But Nigeria as a country, we have very many number of worshippers of African traditional religion. In some of these dialogues, these people were not put into perspectives, the right perspectives. We have come increasing across situations where Christian and Islamic religious leaders, I'm a religious leader myself, so when I make some of these observations, I am also, one of these things, wrote a book because I am involved. We see that the peace and the serenity of a community being destroyed by the action of religious leaders. We come to a community that has a shrine or a place or a festival or something. The man of God or the pastor will claim that God has revealed to me that this sacred tree has to be cut down. God has revealed to me that this man is responsible for this person's, your uncle is responsible for your misfortune. And you see families pitched against one another. So when we talk about interreligious, interfaith dialogue, nobody brings these perspectives into consideration. Nobody tries to observe the fact that African traditional religion was already an existing religion before the advent of Christianity in Africa. And some of the values that are being expounded by the Christian religion or Islamic or Muslim religion are already there. In fact, African traditional religion is even more tolerant. Some of these values as tolerance, love, brotherly love, these values are already there. But when these two religions come, they are reappropriated them, and also, you know, of course, one of the realities is that religion was also used as a tool of colonialism by the British colonial masters in Nigeria. So what we are trying to argue in this paper is that for the objectives of this interfaith dialogue to succeed, all the different religious groups must be part of the system. It is not enough. It is not just enough to be. Why it has not succeeded so far is that it is seen exclusively as a kind of a Christian-Muslim affair. And even when, because all these chief priests, because we characterize them as they are pagans, they are heathens, they are this, but even when they are talking, nobody puts them in their right perspectives. And when actions are carried against them, nobody appears to realize those things. But it is, once it touches Christians or Muslims, then all heads will be up. So we are underscoring this fact that for the objectives of this interfaith dialogue to be realized in Nigeria, that other religious components, especially the African traditional religion, must be put into proper perspective. Thank you very much, and God bless.